What's going on, guys, and welcome to Who to Sign For. Now in this series I'm giving you my recommendations on what players to sign for a specific team in career mode, but before we go on I will say that the signings you'll see aren't designed to be realistic and that the player ratings and potentials may vary depending on what database you're using and how the players perform for you during the season. Obviously you don't have to follow all the tips, this is really just a set of guidelines to give you a hand if you're stuck for ideas and want some suggestions on what players you can sign for a certain club. This is mainly aimed at those who may be new to the game and just need a little bit of advice, or for those you out there who just want a few recommendations of what players to sign for a team that you may be using in career mode this year. So in today's episode of Who to Sign For, guys, we are going to take a look at Everton. Yes, the Toffees of Goodison Park, who after last night's derby defeat to Liverpool at Anfield are now sitting in the relegation zone in 18th place with just 14 points from their first 15 games. It's been a really tough season for Toffees fans, and as we know right now, there is a lot of speculation that Marco Silva will be getting the sack imminently, and in fact by the time this video goes up it may well have happened. So a question for you guys today right off the bat, and that is, who do you think should take over at Everton next? Who do you think should be Marco Silva's successor? By the time this video goes up he might well have been named, I'm not entirely sure. It's 11 AM on Thursday morning for me. As things stand, Marco Silva is still there, so by the time this video goes up he could still be there, but his sacking does appear to be quite imminent. So let me know in the comment section down below, if his successor hasn't been named yet, who do you think should become the next permanent Everton manager? So for an Everton career mode in the first season, you start off with a budget of around £48.2 million. So a very decent budget, and with wage budget alteration you can get it up to around £55 million, as EA normally give you a very generous wage budget in your first season. And as to the objectives in the first season at Goodison Park, you got to finish in a Europa League spot, very tough to do considering the big boys around you, and also reached around a 16 in the FA Cup. That is definitely achievable. But the league objective, finishing in Europa League spot, which might well have to be 5th depending on cup finalists, is a very tough ask from the Everton board. Now they're a 4.5 star team, and they've got a pretty decent team as well. It's not too bad. They should be in a higher position than where they are in real life right now. There's no denying that whatsoever. 4.5 star team, and there's a lot of decent young players here as well. There's quite a lot of decent young talent here. Obviously I signed Moise Kean from Juventus in the summer. They got young Tom Davis, the central midfielder, very decent player indeed. Jordan Pickford is their number one. Calvert-Lewin, of course, not a bad striker either. Could grow a few ratings as well. There's some decent young talents in this team, but it definitely needs more first team quality. There's no doubt about that. And as to the players that have their deals that come at the end of the year, Sidibe is on loan, so of course he'll be going back to his parent club coming the end of the season. And there's quite a few aging players I'd love to shift on straight away. You've got Niasse, Stecklenburg, Leighton Baines has been there for so long, but he's now 34 years old and worth letting go. And quite a few youngsters as well. I'd personally only give 2 contracts out there, those to Gibson and Feeney. These are 19 and 20-year-old centre-backs, both in the low 60s for overall, but both could get pretty decent in the future with high 70 to low 80 potential. I'll give those 2 contracts there, Gibson and Feeney, but let the other lads go. If you want to give one to Folds, and there's a striker as well, Mampala, you can do if you want, but personally speaking, I'd let them go when the deals are coming the end of the year. And as the players to put on the transfer list, Stecklenburg, who's going to retire in the first season, Leighton Baines, Theo Walcott, Seamus Coleman, Cuco Martina, and also Niasse as well. Those are the players I've put on the list. But as for new signings with Everton, as I mentioned there, really you've got a decent amount of young quality here, there's no doubt about it. Quite a youthful side with players that could get pretty decent in the future, but you need first team quality now. You don't need to look for signings for the future, you need first team quality now, and players that are going to come straight into the starting 11 and improve your Everton team to give you the best possible chance of succeeding with that very strong domestic aim in the league. And my number one target for an Everton career mode would be this guy right here, Timo Werner of RB Leipzig. Now, as his deals that come the end of the year, you can get a German for around his valuation, which is just £31 million. We're going to deal 700,000 over the valuation, so a very cheap deal for the 83 rated 23-year-old striker with 88 potential. This guy's got some absolutely fantastic stats. The fact you can get him for around his valuation is a total bargain, and one you cannot afford to pass up. Now you might be sitting there and saying, hang on a minute, you've got Moise Kean from Juventus who's got around 85, 86 potential. You've got Dominic Calvert-Lewin that's also got low to mid 80 potential. Why would you go and sign another striker when you've also got Cenk Tosun, Niasse, both in the 70s for their rating, and Sandra out on loan as well? Well, as I mentioned earlier, it's because this guy is better than all of them. Much better than all of them. Timo Werner is 6 ratings higher than your highest rated striker Calvert Calvert-Lewin. And whilst those players are good for the future, this guy's good for now, and that's what you need to improve. You need first 11 signings with this Everton team, not players that you're bleeding gradually, but players you're throwing in the deep end and say, right, get us into the Europa League. Timo Werner's goals can do that for you. He's got some fantastic stats. He's absolutely rapid, high medium work rates, 4-star week for 83 dribbling, 85 finishing, I think it is, but a very high finishing stat regardless. Brilliant stats. And again, the fact you can get him for around his valuation of £31 million is a bargain that you simply cannot afford to pass up in the first season. Yes, you got Keane. Yes, you got Calvert-Lewin. Yes, you got Tosun, Niasse and Sandro out on loan as well. But listen, you've got to get Werner. He is definitely worth the money. No doubt about it, as you're barely paying over his valuation. And he's got 88 potential as well. So in the future could become one of the best strikers in Europe. So definitely pick up Werner. That's my number one, and I would say primary target for an Everton career mode. Now, don't forget you want to sell those aging players as well. We have bids here for Cuco Martina, Umar Niasse, and also Leighton Baines as well. Baines, of course, has been at Goodison Park for over a decade, but now at 34 years old and out of contract in the summer, it's time for a new era at Goodison Park. You can't keep on living in the past. It's time to change things up and look to bring in younger and better players as well. We did sell Niasse to Montpellier for £3 million. Sadly, left 100 grand on the table there as a Genk deal would get us a bit more money. But Baines did reject his deal to Anderlecht, as did Martina, rejecting his bid to Amiens as well. So whilst you'll see throughout the course of this episode, I was trying so hard to sell these players. A lot of them were reluctant to go. This guy in particular, Cuco Martina, just did not want to leave Goodison Park. But I also negotiated a deal here with Athletic Bilbao for Seamus Coleman. Now, of course, Coleman is now the club captain at Everton, and the right back has been there for around a decade, I do believe. But I'd look to sell him in the first season, even though his contract's not outcome the end of the year. He's 79 rated, 30 years old. He's only going to start decreasing in ability as well. And I would recommend a new right back for you, even though you've got Sidibe on loan, Mason Holgate that can play there, even though he's better suited to playing centre back in my opinion, and also John Joe Kenny out on loan. I'd look to sell Coleman in the first season and bring in a better first choice right back, with Sidibe coming off the bench whilst Kenny's out on loan right now. And the player I'd recommend for a new right back is this guy right here. Your primary target needs to be this man, Ricardo Pereira of Leicester City. I'm such a massive fan of this guy in real life. He is such an underrated player as part of Brendan Rodgers' side. He is one of the best right backs in the division, in my opinion. He really is superb. He's valued at £25 million. You will be spending over that, no doubt about it. But at 25 years old, 83 rated, he still grows a couple of ratings, with his potential being 85 as well. You get him for around 35 to 40 million pounds. We agreed a deal halfway through there of 37.5 million pounds. But whilst a lot of money to pay for the Portuguese fullback, this guy is a step up on Seamus Coleman by 4 ratings, despite being 5 years younger. Grows another 2 ratings as well, so much better than the Irish fullback, and his stats are absolutely perfect for this Everton team. It's a lot of money to bring him in, and when you've got Sidibe on loan, when you've got Coleman the captain as well, John Joe Kenny out on loan, you might question why, but again, just like Werner, it's not about the fact there's healthy competition for position here. It's about an improvement in first team quality. Pereira is a big step up on your right back options right now. 83 rated, 85 potential, 4-star week for 3-star skill moves, high work rates, ideal for the Toffees. Can be pushed up further to play right midfield if you'd rather do so as well, or perhaps switch formation to a 3 at the back system. The guy's rapid, he's got 87 stamina, he's got the early crosser trait with high crossing, high ball control, high dribbling stats as well, and solid on the defensive end as well. Defensively, and especially when going forward, this guy is going to be superb, creating chances, and with him at right back and Lucas Digne at left back, it's the ideal fullback combination for the next 5 or 6 years at Goodison Park. Definitely my number one target for a new right back with the Toffees. But as you'll see, we did manage to sell Leighton Baines the second time of asking. We couldn't get a decent deal of Ajax, but £1.65 million was the fee. Not too bad for the 34-year-old. And again, just making sure you get his wages off the books is the most important thing. And also with Theo Walcott as well, we accepted a deal here with Bilbao of £8.2 million. Sadly, it did fall through, as did this bid for Cuco Martina. Every single bid we got for Martina fell through. It was just so annoying, but the guy would not leave 31 grand grand a week, and why would he, I suppose? But either way, he just would not leave the club. And also big game for Cenk Tosun as well. And after the signing of Werner, I decided to accept this one. 76 rated, 28 years old, so still a pretty decent striker to have in your reserves. But he now becomes 4th choice behind Werner, Keane, and Calvert-Lewin. And if you want, perhaps even Richarlison. So he might be 5th choice here. So I'd recommend selling Tosun myself. If you can get around his valuation, which we did, which is £7.3 million, I'd recommend letting the guy go for a fresh start elsewhere, as you won't get first team football at your club, and it gets his high salary off the books as well. But as you'll see, we did sell Leighton Baines to Ajax, and Theo Walcott would eventually leave at one point to AC Milan. But before we saw the sale there of Walcott, we had around £8.5 million remaining in our transfer budget after the season ticket sales. Also got added to our budget allocation as well, and I decided to sign a new left back to replace Leighton Baines. After selling the experienced left back, it's best to get someone in to replace him as a backup, and I've got 3 options for you here: Pedrosa of Espanyol, Nuno Tavares of Benfica, and also Ruben Vinagre of Wolves as well, who would be a superb signing to replace Leighton Baines. Any of these 3 left back options would be a really good player to replace the ageing Englishman, and whilst they're all lower rated than Leighton Baines, of course they are far years younger, more than a decade younger than Leighton Baines, and therefore have much more potential as well. We agreed a deal of £8 million with Espanyol for Pedrosa, as he was the highest rated left back at 74 overall. We agreed a deal of, I think it was £7 million, or perhaps I think it was 6.4 million actually, for Tavares. Yeah, £6.4 million plus Cuco Martina, the right back who we just could not sell for love nor money. And also Ruben Vinagre, we agreed a great deal with Wolves here of just £4.75 million for the talented young Portuguese left wing back. So 3 decent deals accepted there from Espanyol, Benfica, and also Wolves as well. So it was my choice who I wanted here: Pedrosa, Tavares, or Vinagre. Any of these options, if you negotiate deals with these 3 clubs here, any of these options will be a really good player to replace Leighton Baines with, as they've all got mid-80 potential, and they're all very young and a decade younger than Leighton Baines as well. I decided to go for Tavares though. He was the youngest option there at 19 years old, so younger than Baines by 15 years, but only 2 ratings lower, and as well, he's a decade younger with much higher potential. One of the bonuses with this as well is that it got rid of Martina's salary, so Tavares comes in on a lower salary than Leighton Baines and Martina would have been on. 18 grand a week, 5-year deal, and whilst of course he won't take out Lucas Digne in the first 2 or 3 years, he's there for the future as a future starting left back for you with 85 potential. Definitely worth picking up, and you see his key stats there: sprint speed, acceleration, and stamina. The guy's rapid with high medium work rates and a 4-star weak foot too. He's going to bomb up the pitch all game long, not get tired, and he can also play right back as well, which is very handy for versatility. So Tavares coming in, he's got great stats on the offensive end. Tavares, definitely worth picking up, but he, Pedrosa, or Vinagre, any of those 3 will be a great option to replace your aging Leighton Baines. But following that, we did sell Tosun, and also eventually the Theo Walcott deal did go through, as they were still negotiating there with Milan. Once we sold Tosun, if you did want to get a backup 4th choice striker, you could recall Sandro, 75 rated 24-year-old from Real Valladolid in Spain. That's totally up to you. Personally speaking, I wouldn't do so. You've got a young talented striker in Sims you could have as your 4th choice striker, and again you've got Keane, Calvert-Lewin, and Timo Werner. He'll rarely get any game time anyway, so I'd leave Sandro out on loan personally. But after the sale of Tosun, we did go in for a new centre back with Everton, as we now had around £14 million in our budget, and I had 5 names on the shortlist here, all of which would be really good players to improve your first team, if not your first 11. Luis Felipe of Lazio, Juan Foyth of Spurs, Retsos of Bayer Leverkusen, and Tuanzebe of Manchester United, plus Fikayo Tomori of Chelsea, who, I've got to be honest here, is criminally underrated in this year's FIFA career mode. 74 rated? Are you serious? No way should he be rated that low. Tomori is much better than that. But anyway, any of those 5 centre-back options there would be fantastic for you, but the best one would be the lad from Lazio, Luis Felipe. 78 rated, 22 years old, and as he's out of contract in the summer, you should be able to get him around his valuation. One thing you should pay attention to in this year's FIFA is that when players are out of contract come the end of the season, clubs normally will accept a round evaluation bid for them. Just like Timo Werner did with RB Leipzig, we got him for just around his valuation, and it was the same with Lazio. He's valued valued at £13 million. That's the deal we agreed, plus a measly 2% sell-on clause as well. And whilst the other centre-backs, Tomori, Retsos, Tuanzebe, and also Juan Foyth would have been good options, and also younger, younger and cheaper than Luis Felipe, I simply couldn't turn down this deal. £13 million deal, a valuation deal for the Brazilian centre-half from Lazio, and this guy, 78 rated, 22 years old, has some great defensive stats as his key stats at 6'2". He'll be an improvement in your backline, help you defend much better at Goodison Park, and at 22 years old, he's got 87 potential as well. So as the years go on, he'll grow and grow and grow, get better and better and better, and eventually, hopefully, touch wood, become one of the best centre-backs in Europe for your Everton side as well. For £13 million, that is an absolute steal, just like with Timo Werner, and definitely, I would say, my first choice for a new centre-back with Everton. You can either have him on the bench in the first season and keep faith with Moise Kean and Yerry Mina, or take out one of Kean or Mina. I'll personally recommend taking out Mina first and playing alongside Moise Kean, and then after 2 or 3 years, swapping out Kean for Yerry Mina, but that choice is totally up to you. You can have any combination of those 3 centre-halves there, play Kean and Felipe together, Kean and Mina together, or Felipe and Mina. It's up to you what centre-back pairing you go with, but he is the same overall as Yerry Mina and 2 years younger as well. So after that, we were basically done. I always encourage you guys leave a little bit of money in your transfer budget come the end of the summer transfer window just to play the pre-contract game in January, and in total in the summer transfer window we'd sold 5 players for just under £31 million and signed 4 players for £88.6 million, spending big on our 4 players, but 3 of which going straight into the starting 11. As we discussed, that's what you need to do in the first season with Everton. So a net loss of £57.7 million, but the question was, would our 3 big new signings plus the virus for the reserves get us into the Europa League like the board are asking for? As per usual, we simulated the end of the season with the Toffees and see if they could do the job on the pitch, and as you could see, it was an incredible season for Everton, but a downright bizarre one of the most bizarre simulated seasons I've ever seen. We won 25 of our 38 games, only losing 8 times in the season and scoring 73 goals, and finishing up with a whopping 80 points. 80 points from 38 games, but we still finished in 7th place outside of the big traditional top 6 and finishing in that 7th and final European spot. Absolutely downright bizarre, but it shows you what this year's career mode is like. The big teams rarely, and I mean rarely, drop points. A downright bizarre league table as we finished in 7th, but as you can see, despite being knocked out in the round of 16 stage of the Carabao Cup by the eventual finalist Manchester City, as Manchester United won the Carabao Cup and Manchester City won the FA Cup, with Spurs reaching the final of the FA Cup, that meant that 7th place was good enough for a Europa League spot, as we were knocked out in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup by West Ham, going 1 stage further than the board asked us to reach. So it was a bit weird in the end because we technically succeeded with our Europa League, with our Premier League objective, finishing in the Europa League spot, and therefore, as you can see continentally, did qualify for the Europa League. But the game counted it as a failure because it wasn't the 5th place, which is the only automatic place. So whilst we did reach our objective, the game counted it as a failure because it was 7th and not 5th. It was strange. Like, you know, continental objective succeeded, Premier League objective failed. How does that make sense? We qualified for the Europa League. Nope, it's still a failure. It wasn't automatic, but it still counts, of course, even though the game didn't count it themselves. But either way, that was that for a downright bizarre first season with the Toffees. It really was one of the craziest simulations I've ever done, no question about it. 80 points, and it still wasn't good enough to break up the top 6. Extraordinary. But the team got better and better in the first season, as you can see, and this is why you prioritise young players over old players in career mode. Nuno Tavares only played 7 games in the season, but grew 2 ratings in his debut year in the Premier League. I must say Luis Felipe was a bit disappointing. Only played 16 games in total and only grew 1 rating. I can only imagine that was due to an injury that probably occurred during the season, because at 79 rated he'd be a third highest centre-back there behind Mina and Keane. So I can only imagine that was just due to an injury that we wouldn't have seen. But Ricardo Pereira grew 1 rating in his first season as well, went up to an 84 overall rated right back and grew his market valuation by 15%, scoring 2 times and getting 3 assists in his debut year year at Goodison Park. So decent seasons there for Pereira and Tavares, for Pereira, with Tavares and Felipe not playing too much, but Felipe's absence of games was most likely due to an in-game injury that we wouldn't have seen. But as for Timo Werner in the first season, as you'll see, he had a superb debut year in the Premier League. He scored 17 goals in 38 Premier League matches, so playing every Premier League game, and he got 4 assists as well. Grew 3 ratings in the first season, so fabulous first season for Werner, as his finishing stat also increased, and he grew his market valuation in just 1 year by 58% to £49 million. For £31 million, as I said earlier on the episode, that is an absolute bargain that you cannot afford to pass up. And in the end, as you can see, we had 3 players in the top 15 for goal scorers. Gylfi Sigurdsson with 19, Richarlison with 19, and Werner with 17. A great first season for Werner, and an even better first season for Everton. If you were to offer the Toffees fans right now a 7th place finish, 80 points on the board come the end of the season, Europa League football next year, and an FA Cup quarter-final place, I'm pretty sure they'd bite your hand off. That was a great first season, even though my manager rating inexplicably dropped. That was a superb first year at Goodison Park, and you're now set up for a really successful second year playing European football with a good young team full of players that have got great potential added to your already pretty youthful Everton side. But that will end today's episode of Who to Sign For, guys. So big thank you for watching. Really hope you have enjoyed it. If the tips helped you, then please do drop a like, and if you're new to the channel, please do click the subscribe button, as I upload FIFA 20 career mode videos every single day. Much love to you all, have a fantastic evening, and I'll see you for the next episode of Who to Sign For very soon.